I'm a big YouTuber.
I literally cover court cases for a living.
I'm gonna give you my ID.
I cover the court cases for a living.
Yeah, what up, y'all? Welcome to Crown TV. I am the Crown Prince, aka Mr. Anti-Goofy. You know what not to do in my comments. Shout out to the Anti-Goofy gang. We approaching 10,000 strong. We in the building. If you want to donate to the channel and you really gang, instead of the super chat, hit up the Cash App. Gang. All right, y'all, so new paperwork is out. Hopefully y'all miss this style of video as much as I do. Sometimes live gets a little bit lazy feeling. I miss my editing thing, doing my 1-2 thing with the editing. But new paperwork is out. This is in Shotti's case, and what this is the government's sentencing submission. So I showed y'all the sentencing submission from the defense. This one is from the government, and they are also recommending that same 15 years. And it details why in this paperwork. The other interesting thing in this paperwork is that it also details the case that they would have put up against Shotti had he gone to trial. And in these documents, you can clearly see that the information that they plan to use came mostly from not only Tekashi 6ix9ine, but his driver as well. Now, the first paragraph talks about how they came about his mandatory minimum. I'm not going to spend too much time there. What I do want to do is go into this section right here that says offense conduct. It says the defendant was a high-ranking member of the racketeering enterprise known as the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods. As detailed in the PSR, that's pre-sentencing report, 9 Trey was one of the original blood sets formed under the United Bloods Nation in 1993. The leadership structure of the 9 Trey is divided into 2 parts: the prison lineup, which consists of incarcerated members, and the street lineup, which consists of members who are not incarcerated. The defendant held a high O20 position, which is the second highest position in the street lineup. The defendant was involved in multiple acts of violence, detailed below, in furtherance of the 9 Trey enterprise. Now, here is the breakdown, and I want y'all to pay attention to the language. It says November 2017, the defendant, along with other members of 9 Trey, including Daniel Hernandez, a.k.a. Tekashi 6ix9ine, and Anthony Ellison, a.k.a. Harv, followed a rap artist who was a member of a different blood set, individual number 1, from Brooklyn to a hotel in Manhattan. After they arrived in Manhattan, the defendant and Ellison ran into the hotel lobby, confronted individual 1 and his entourage, and Ellison punched individual 1 in the face. If you know that's Trippie Redd. Now, in March 2018, on or about March 20th, 2018, the defendant and other members of 9 Trey, including Hernandez, Denard Butler, a.k.a. Drama, and others traveled to Manhattan to wait for a member of another blood set, individual number 2, who was providing protection for individual number 1. As individual number 2 exited a building in Manhattan, individual number 2 entered a Sprinter van. Hernandez and Butler and another person were in one car and drove in front of the Sprinter van. The defendant was in another car which pulled alongside the Sprinter van, and the defendant shot approximately 5 rounds into the side of the Sprinter van. April 3rd, 2018. On April 3rd, 2018, the defendant and others traveled from Brooklyn to Midtown Manhattan in order to rob a rival gang member and rapper who was in a public feud with Hernandez. The defendant traveled with Hernandez, Fahim Walter, aka Crippy, and a cooperating witness in one car with Giselle Butler, aka Ish, Roland Martin, aka Roll Murder, and Denard Butler, a.k.a. Drama, and another travel in another car. Once the victim entered the lobby of the building, the defendant and Walter ran out of the car and confronted the victims. They were quickly joined by Denard Butler, Martin, and another individual. The defendant was holding a pistol throughout the robbery. The April 3rd robbery was recorded by both the building surveillance cameras and by Hernandez, who was filming the April 3rd robbery from the backseat of a car parked outside of the building. After the robbery, the defendant ran back into the car, handed the gun to Hernandez, and directed Hernandez to take the subway. For his involvement in the April 3rd robbery, the defendant pled guilty to possessing a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 924. April 21st, 2018. On April 21st, 2018, the defendant was involved in two shootings. First, in the afternoon, the defendant was with Hernandez, a cooperating witness, and another individual in Brooklyn. As they were leaving the restaurant, an individual shouted a derogatory remark at Hernandez. The defendant confronted the individuals. The defendant, Hernandez, and the others got into their car and drove away. The individual who shouted the derogatory comment and another person followed them in another car. Eventually, the defendant got out of the car, ran towards the individuals, and fired 2 shots at their car. For this conduct, the defendant pleaded guilty to the discharging of a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence, in violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 924. The second shooting took place at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The defendant arrived with Hernandez, Denard Butler, Genzel Butler, Walker, Martin, and Fuquan Lovick, a.k.a. Fubanga, among others. Hernandez was scheduled to sing the entrance song for a boxer who had a match that night. While in the hallway in the Barclays Center, the defendant and other 9 Trey members encountered the entourage of a rival rapper who was a member of a different blood set. During the altercation, Lovick fired a gun in the air over the rival gang members' heads. Later, the defendant told Hernandez that the defendant told Lovick to fire his gun. A cooperating witness would further testify that after the shooting, the defendant handed the cooperating witness his coat, which had a gun in the coat's pocket. It is unclear whether the gun was the one Lovick used or if it was a different gun. June 2nd, 2018. On or about June 2nd, 2018, Hernandez asked Kentia McKenzie, a.k.a. Kuda B, to shoot at a rival rapper who was a member of a different gang, Individual Number 3. Individual Number 3 and Hernandez had been in a long-running public dispute. Hernandez was with the defendant when Hernandez reached out to McKenzie and offered McKenzie $20,000 to shoot at Individual Number 3. McKenzie assembled a group of people to shoot at Individual Number 3. One of those individuals fired a round in the direction of Individual Number 3 while Individual Number 3 was standing outside a hotel in Times Square. The next day, the defendant and Hernandez met with McKenzie in New York. Hernandez counted out $20,000, but the defendant took the money and only paid McKenzie $10,000. July 16th, 2018. On or about July 16, 2018, the defendant and Hernandez were in Los Angeles when they saw another member of 9 Trey, Individual Number 4, post on a social media site. The defendant then contacted Martin, Walter, and others and said in some substance that they needed to take care of Individual Number 4. Later that evening, a shooting took place in the area where Individual Number 4 was staying, and an innocent bystander was struck in the foot. July 16, 2018 recording. On or about July 22, 2018, Hernandez was robbed at gunpoint by Anthony Ellison, a.k.a. Harv, and another person. Later that day, the defendant arrived at Hernandez's house with Jamel Jones, a.k.a. Mel Murder, and bought an AR pistol to Hernandez's home. Several days after the robbery, the defendant was in a car with Hernandez and a cooperating witness. The cooperating witness was recording the conversation. During the conversation, the defendant said, among other things, that because Hernandez was robbed, the defendant would have to retaliate. The defendant acknowledged that he carried around an assault rifle. Finally, the defendant stated in some substance that when Jones had been robbed in the past, the defendant retaliated by shooting 5 people. On or about October 26, 2018, the defendant was involved in an altercation in front of a restaurant in the vicinity of East 60th Street and Madison Avenue. The defendant, Hernandez, and Walter went to the restaurant to meet with one of Hernandez's music managers. While there, the music manager and the defendant got into a dispute. Hernandez left the restaurant, but the defendant and Walter remained, and the two of them got into a physical altercation with the music manager's security guards, one of whom was a retired NYPD officer. The retired NYPD officer fired a shot that struck Walter in the stomach. Other acts in furtherance of 9 Trey. Apart from the acts of violence detailed here, cooperating witnesses would testify that Jordan arranged to have individual number 4, another 9 Trey member, bring firearms to New York from Georgia. In addition, a cooperating witness who was a member of 9 Trey would testify that he supplied approximately 150 grams of heroin to Jordan on consignment, but that Jordan never paid the cooperating witness for the drugs. Now, I'm going to spare y'all the rest of these documents and remind y'all that you can get the documents by contacting me at thecrownprince@gmail.com, and I will send you your copy as soon as I get your email. I did all of that to show that what the government is basically saying is that Shotti is a very dangerous individual and that he deserves every bit of that mandatory minimum. I told y'all you have to have a very good reason to get out of your mandatory minimum. The most common one is snitching. Again, and I hate to keep pointing this out, we don't see anything in Shotti's paperwork about a cooperation agreement, about a 5K1, or any of the other language that we have found in Tekashi 6ix9ine's documents. We also have not seen this kind of language in anyone else's documents as to date. We do know there were other confidential witnesses, at least one. We don't know who they are. The only witnesses we know now are CW1, 2, and 3. 2 of those are Tekashi and his driver. The third is assumed to be CEO Chris. This is all just to keep y'all updated. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe if you are not a goofy. If you are a goofy, you know the rules. It's the Crown Prince. I'm out, y'all.